So we'll go ahead and address what these policies are that are so shocking. So we'll go ahead and address what
Stop with the questions. Celebrate.
And then they say, is Donald Trump an intellectual? Trust me, I'm like a smart person. Yosemite's one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Mike Lindell's a conspiracy.
Well, you haven't. Person, woman, man, camera, TV. They said nobody gets it in order. It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy.
Amazing.
He can't sit down. He's got a burning in his butthole. He's got a fire. He's got a flame coming out of his butthole.
Big, massive dumps.
Oh, I have a term for that. I call it corporate communism.
Somebody sent me a thing this morning where they're talking about putting the vaccine into salad dressing.
you see, this is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real.
You ain't seen nothing yet until you see the flaming butthole.
Putting us on our knees to China.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
There's insanity in the control room.
Welcome to the show. Yes, I'm a little late today. So I admit it, I spent a little too much time working on that new intro that I completely lost track of the time. And so that's my bad. I'm here. There's nothing wrong with your internet. It's okay. It's gonna be all right. I am a one-man show. And so, of course, I cannot fire my producer for being late because that would be firing me. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully it was worth it. It was a lot of fun. So I love those new, I love those intros. By the way, some of those are new clips. The other ones are throwbacks. You know how it is. You know how it is. It's totally fun. So we're gonna have a good time today. It is Friday. It is the end of the week. We've got a fantastic show for y'all today. You all know the news already. The Arizona audit is done. You're gonna enjoy the results. We were waiting for the audit. I mean, Trump supporters were like, "Oh my God, just wait for the audit." Wait for the Arizona audit. It's going to prove everything. Yeah, that's it. Donald Trump, reinstatement. Oops. Wait. Then we've got Rudy Giuliani getting shadow banned by Fox News. That's fun. We got Charlie Kirk goes full white nationalist. We've got an unhinged conspiracy theorist. Yes, we're going to talk more about conspiracy theories. Fun times. Threatening medical professionals over ivermectin. And then, of course, we have sexy seahorses being canceled in Tennessee. Of course. So we're going to talk about that. All these stories. Let's do it. Jump in. We got the biggest loser. Very sad, baby. It's here. Yes, the draft report for the much hyped Arizona audit has been leaked, and it's fantastic. So now, the recount, which by the way, the actual report is being presented as we speak. So it's supposed to happen on 4 p.m. At 4 p.m. And, well, it's 4 p.m., at least Eastern Standard Time. And so either it's already happening or it will happen very, very soon. But it's not going to differ too much from what we actually have. Although it's probably going to add a bunch of other conspiracies and nonsense. But really, let's get to the meat of this, right? So now the recount of the Maricopa County's votes by the Cyber Ninjas group shows that Trump did not win the state in 2020. No, he lost. So now, remember, this company was hired basically to try to find any way to say that, Trump, we have proof Donald Trump was cheated, et cetera, right? It turns out they couldn't find a goddamn thing. They just couldn't find it. Now, this is, look, I've been talking about this for a long time. This entire thing was a gigantic, epic bag of fail. And that, well, it turns out what's even better about this is that they found that Trump had even fewer votes than what the official certification actually showed. Roughly about 100. In fact, it tallied 99 additional votes for President Biden and 261 fewer votes for Mr. Trump in Maricopa County, the fast-growing region that includes Phoenix, to which I say, oops, sad, baby. The Arizona Republic reported on the leaked draft saying this: the hand count shows Trump received 45,469 fewer votes than Biden. The county results showed that he lost by 45,109. So it's funny, all throughout the report, the draft report, they're like, well, Donald Trump received fewer votes. They didn't actually say Biden won. They said Trump received fewer votes. Well, in our election system, if you get more votes, you generally win. I mean, of course, that's not counting, of course, presidential elections in the Electoral College, etc. But I'm saying in the state, right? You get the most votes in the state, well, you're going to get more Electoral College votes. And that's generally how it works. All right? So now, soak that in for a minute, okay? The fact that he actually, this once again proved that Trump got less votes than Joe Biden, meaning Joe Biden won the state. Soak it in. Because it's good. It's so good. And it is drenched in the tears of MAGA chuds. So now what happened? What happened, Cyber Ninjas? You flip out? No, it turns out, again, Trump got less votes. That's how it works. Now, Maricopa County officials celebrated this news by saying that, see, we told you, we were right. We counted right. They announced the findings on Twitter, but warned that the 110-page report is littered with errors and faulty conclusions about how Maricopa County conducted the 2020 general election, which again, Cybernin just concedes that, well, we found more votes for Biden and less for Trump. Tim Steller, columnist for the Arizona Daily Star, said the findings should still be discounted even though they confirm the official outcome. So now he said this. Here's the thing about all these reports saying cyber ninjas found that Biden won. The cyber ninjas hand count is no good. No matter what it found, it was done using made-up techniques, with turntables whipping ballots around fast. The count can't be trusted for many reasons. Well, again, I'd reported on the utter shit show that this Arizona recount actually was. They were not a trusted company. Again, they had already made up their minds the conclusion that they wanted to find, and yet could provide no evidence to back up said conclusion. Now, he added, in other words, the audit is as bogus today as when it was when Karen Fann picked a biased, no experienced team to run it. There you go. Now, that is, like I said, very important to remember, as I mentioned, shady practices. But even with all that, they still ended up with the same result. Joe Biden winning, Donald Trump losing. Now, the really stupid thing about this, and it's all really stupid, is that this was paid for by millions of dollars in taxpayer money. Donald Trump didn't pay for this. What a complete and utter waste of time and money that could have been to other things. But hey, it turns out in the end, this company still made that money and installed hopium into the hearts of millions of chuds. I wonder what they'll say now. Are they going to accept this and say, oh, well, it turns out, yeah, them's the breaks, man. I guess Joe Biden actually did win. He's our president. No, they're going to say Trump won, deep state. Biden stole the election. I'm sad and have no life. I need my mommy. Yeah, I know. We know. Speaking of needing adult supervision, the link of the report came the same day that Trump had pressured Governor Greg Abbott into pursuing his own audit in Texas, despite the fact that Donald Trump handily won Texas. And the worst part is Abbott is going along with it. He's like, oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Why? He won the state. Why are you challenging Texas? It doesn't make any sense. Oh, it hurt. Oh, my brain. Not only that, but by the way, the leak came out last night at about 10:30 p.m. Now, a half hour later, Trump puts out this statement, which is quickly deleted. Here's what he said. Interesting that the Unselect Committee of Political Hacks dropped their subpoena request the night before Arizona is expected to announce its findings from the forensic audit on voter fraud in the 2020 presidential election scam. This is what they do. This is what they're good at. But everybody will be watching Arizona tomorrow to see what the highly respected auditors and Arizona State Senate found out regarding the so-called election. Completely unaware. Just unaware. Like, did he not know that the results had already been leaked? Was he not paying attention? And by the way, I am being 100% fair there. Maybe he wasn't aware of it. Maybe he didn't see that. Because that does actually happen. And maybe, by the way, this could have been a pre-planned statement. Again, there will be statements that are written and that will be released at a certain time, at night, whatever. And then, well, by the time that was released, they didn't know the audit, or maybe they had found out and they couldn't just take back that press release. It's much different than deleting a tweet. You can't do that. And so I don't know. I also don't care, because you know what? This is funny. It is fun to watch these statements aged like fine milk, or I should say sour milk. There ain't no fine right there. Now, it's also funnier when you realize that Trump has basically watched himself lose at least 4 times now. 4 times. That's if you count the recounts, which have all come up with the same conclusion that Donald Trump is a big loser. Let it go. You ain't winning this. You ain't winning any of this. You're clowning yourself more, you sad loser baby bitch. By the way, as I mentioned, he deleted that and then released this statement earlier today. Quote, huge findings in Arizona. However, the fake news media is already trying to call it again for Biden before actually looking at the facts, just like they did in November. The audit has uncovered significant and undeniable evidence of fraud. Until we know how and why this happened, our elections will never be secure. This is a major criminal event and should be investigated by the Attorney General immediately. The state's final report will be released today at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I have heard it is far different than that being reported by the fake news media. You know what's funny? He tried to call it last night and then failed miserably. Hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Now, one more thing. So now, when all this is said and done, and I know this is not going to happen. This is not going to happen. Okay? I think that there should be some repayment here. Repayment. I'm not holding my breath, but I would love to see Donald Trump or cyber ninjas get sued by the states in order to recoup the expenditures incurred on the people of Maricopa County for this farce of a recount. Pay it all back. Not only pay it all back, but they should have to buy new voting machines because the ones they used are tainted. I mean, there's no way you can get a secure election out of those machines anymore. Not that you had this group poking and prodding the inside of them for months. No, there should be a penalty for abusing the ability to call for a recount. I'm not saying get rid of recounts, not at all. There should be recounts, but there should be stricter requirements for them. So that said, like, for example, if you have a super close election, totally fine to do a recount there, right? Or if there's a suspicion that is backed up by some sort of evidence pointing to maybe ballot stuffing or some sort of fraud, fair enough, fair enough. But I think the bar should just be a little bit higher than a guy screaming fake news, rigged election, with no evidence, with nothing to back it up. And again, as we're already seeing, every Trump-aligned Republican right now is using the same excuse: voter fraud, voter fraud, voter fraud, voter fraud, and are already demanding more of these ridiculous audits, which again are not going to show anything. You lost. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, get ready for the next election, because you never know. The Democrats are so bad at their job, you might actually win the next one if you're actually focused on it, instead of, just clinging on to the past. Because it's just sad. So sad. All right. Moving on. Let's go to Rudy Giuliani. Former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani has had his fifis hurt. Aw, how's that? By who? Fox News, apparently. So what happened? What happened? Apparently, Rudy Giuliani and some other senior aides to Donald Trump have been shadow banned from the network. So now this is according to a recent report in Politico. The former Trump lawyer and New York City mayor hasn't appeared on the conservative network for nearly 3 months, but has learned of the ban the night before September 11th, when his supposed scheduled appearance on Fox and Friends to mark the 20th anniversary was cut, and host Pete Hegseth had called him to apologize personally. Oh, gee, I wonder why he would be shadow banned. Oh, right, the enormous lawsuit from Dominion Voting Systems over the big lie. Now, again, they sued Fox News and Giuliani because he spread false claims about the 2020 election and even admitted during a recently publicized 2018 FBI deposition that he had pushed lies about Hillary Clinton on the network ahead of the 2016 election. So this guy's a liar. It's almost as if he lies and lies and lies and then tells more lies about those lies, which is usually fine for Fox News, but in the one case, unless there is money involved. Then, oh no, you got to be truthful and honest here because we run an honest network. Yes. Really now? Really? But hey, money is serious business, especially when you run a media business. So now, the reaction here is great. A source close to Giuliani told Politico, well, Rudy is really hurt because he did a big favor for Rupert. He was instrumental in getting Fox on Time Warner so it could be watched in New York City. I'm pretty sure they might have managed without him. But if that's the case, getting it into New York, well, that's not a good thing. That's a bad thing. Getting it into that market, because the less we have of Fox News, generally the better things are. But that's just me. But I love Rudy's reaction here, or alleged reaction. Why would Fox News do this to me? How dare they when I helped out Rupert? Because it's all about the money. It's all about the money. The supposed ban, apparently, according to political sources, comes from the top and includes Giuliani's son, Andrew, who has not appeared on Fox News since launching his own gubernatorial campaign in New York, although his rival, GOP candidate Representative Lee Zeldin, has made frequent guest appearances. That's very interesting. Again, to me, that kind of looks like a bit of a shadow ban. That said, here's Fox News, a spokesperson, saying, oh, no, you know what? That's wrong. Fake news. Andrew Giuliani was actually on September 10th. And there is no ban on Rudy Giuliani. No outright ban. Okay, well, a shadow ban is, well, it's just that, right? It's banning somebody while not explicitly saying that you were banned. It's basically like, oh, yeah, no, sure, we'll bring you on one of these days. Yeah. And then just never asking them. Never scheduling them. Now, there's also Giuliani's former police commissioner, Bernie Kirk, who had pushed election conspiracies. He did actually go live once on September 11th on Jesse Waters' show. That said, Kirk also complained about this ban to Fox Business Network president Lauren Pedersen, saying, I could not have been more disappointed with the Fox coverage on the 20th anniversary of September 11th. That Kirk, who was convicted of tax fraud and lying to the White House officials, but had later been pardoned by Trump. Then they chose to intentionally ignore Mayor Giuliani, who, according to their own coverage for the last 2 decades, was America's hero on that day and in the aftermath of the attack. Regardless of reasoning, I think this was another demonstration of Fox's cowering to the far left. Far left. For one, okay, there's really no far left in America. Not one that has any sort of significant power at all, right? And look, I don't even consider progressives to be far left. What far left to me is people who are advocating for, I should say, seizing the means of production and instituting socialism. We don't have any of that in power. There are no far leftists in power or in media whatsoever. What we have in reality, at least in context to the rest of the world, are people who are center left, or just regular left. People who do believe in universal health care insurance, along with the vast majority of Americans, and things like regulations on business, but are generally still capitalist. That's not far left. I'm just saying. But no, if you think the left, if you think liberal media actually cares if Giuliani is banned from Fox News, no. If anything, right? If anything, liberal media loves seeing Giuliani saying insane things. Why? Because we can make fun of him. The guy's a clown. He's a walking content farm. Nobody should be taking him seriously at all. But unfortunately, too many listen and actually, not just listen, but agree with all of the drunken rants from this washed-up career politician. And it's just sad. It's so sad. Now, one more note. Other senior aides are also complaining and saying the same thing, that they've been shut out by Fox News. One ex-Trump aide said this, quote, "They're not doing us any favors." Well, that's because you're not relevant anymore. Not only that, but let me just give you another example. I've shown you different videos of Mike Lindell, Mike Pillow, and he's constantly complaining about Fox News now. I can't. Fox News, they wouldn't run my cyber symposium commercial. They wouldn't do it. Shame on you, Fox. Shame on you. In response to this, Lindell even pulled his ads off the network. And he goes on Newsmax and he complains on Steve Bannon's podcast about this the entire time, and then goes on and on about his election rants. And it's funny because they all seem to be going to places like Newsmax and OAN because, well, that's where the crazies are. The rest of the crazies. Honestly, here's the thing. If Fox News didn't have Tucker Carlson, who literally echoes white nationalist talking points and vaccine conspiracies, as well as Laura Ingraham, I think there would be a lot of people who would have quit the network. A lot of people, a lot of pro-Trumpers who would just have gone over to Newsmax and OAN and quit Fox News. So, I mean, it is possible, and I'm not sure, for certain, that Fox News might be on thinner ice than they believe, despite the fact that, of course, they get monster ratings and revenue, and so it's not like they're in financial trouble or anything like that. No. Fox News is here to stay, but I do think they realize that they have to walk a tight line here in order to protect themselves from the lawsuit, while also still pandering a little bit to the crazy in order to keep those viewers. And let me remind you, I believe about half of all Republicans, at least, still think that Joe Biden had cheated his way into the presidency, and that is a pretty large constituency. Which is why in an email to Raw Story, Fox News spokesperson denied that Giuliani was ever in talks for a September 11th appearance on Fox and Friends. And so denying that, oh no, he wasn't banned, he was just never scheduled. Okay, well, if you're not in the network for months and months and months, and you're not getting scheduled for anything, even though you want onto the network, doesn't that imply a shadow ban? Again, not a ban, explicitly, but a shadow ban. But he says, oh, no, fake news, never happened. Giuliani, not banned, just wasn't invited, ever, and we're not going to invite him, but he's not banned. Again, shadow ban. Now, it also sounds like, by the way, you can look at the other part, that Giuliani is just, doing this to try to boost his profile, again, hold on to a little bit of relevance now that he is no longer relevant or in the news cycle, and that's likely because he is broke and needs more people to spend money on his cameo. So, either way, it is both sad and hilarious at the same time. Just say. All right. Moving on. Let's go to more conspiracy theories. Although I like to joke about the absurdity of many of the weird conspiracy theories that I talk about on the show, there is a danger involved. The latest example, of course, involves a family member of an Idaho COVID-19 patient who would threaten a doctor who wouldn't treat the patient with ivermectin. So now, again, I joke about the horsey paste and oh, they're injecting vaccine into your salad. No, none of that is true. But there are people out there that actually do believe it. And sometimes they are driven to doing insane things. So now, as I mentioned, ivermectin is an anti-parasitic treatment for things like river blindness, lice. It can be used in humans for such purposes. And it's also an effective treatment for viral infections. I'm sorry, not an effective treatment for viral infections, but it is an effective treatment at getting rid of parasites like worms in horses and cattle and sheep, right? So now the drug is safe and effective at treating parasitic infections, but it has not been proven to be an effective treatment for viral infections such as SARS-CoV-2 and coronaviruses. And so, in fact, studies have suggested that the amount of ivermectin needed to be effective at killing a virus such as SARS-CoV-2 would be massively unsafe for humans. So you would have to take so much of it that it would not only kill the virus, but it will also kill you. And so that's the danger with ivermectin, okay? And so now, regardless of this, conservative media has latched onto this being the cure of all cures. And oh my God, they don't want us to have the ivermectin because it actually works. They want us to take this vaccine, which apparently doesn't work. You know, half of all humanity has been vaccinated at this point, right? Like, it seems to work. Seems to be pretty effective. And especially in the fact when you look at how many people are in the hospital that are unvaccinated compared to the vaccinated, it's somewhere like 99.5%. Anyway, so now, as I said, they latched onto this as a result of conspiracy theories aided by misleading and faulty studies that have come out and then retracted, spread by certain YouTube and Fox News hosts who don't know what they're talking about. And that's being kind, by the way. As a result of all this conspiracy mongering, along with the anti-vax sentiments led to Dr. Ashley Carvalho being physically threatened over her refusal to administer ivermectin, which could likely do more harm to the patient than good. BuzzFeed News reports that police had to remove a man's son-in-law from the hospital after he told her, quote, "If you don't do this, I have a lot of ways to get people to do something, and they're all sitting in my gun safe at home." Of course, it always comes back to threats when it comes to conspiracies, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Again, this reminds me of the QAnon guy who, again, was armed, had a gun, busted into the Comet Pizza, saying, "Oh, you better release all them kids that are in the basement." Problem is, there wasn't any kids in the basement. There wasn't even a basement. Didn't exist. And the guy's like, "Well, I was trying to save the children from being trafficked." You don't understand. Well, the thing is, and the sad reality is that there is child trafficking that happens in this world, and it is awful, it is horrible, but it's likely not happening at your local pizzeria. It's not happening in places that are just run by Democrats. Okay? No, the sad truth about trafficking is that it happens everywhere. It does. Red states, blue states, it doesn't actually matter. The United States, and this is a startling fact, the United States, along with Mexico and the Philippines, was ranked one of the world's worst places for human trafficking back in 2018. The 3 states that have the highest amount of human trafficking are California, Florida, and Texas. One of the top cities, 2 of the top cities, Washington, D.C., and Las Vegas. Now, part of that, of course, in Las Vegas, for example, and in other places, is due to the high amount of homeless people. So perhaps if we were to do something about homelessness, we could actually reduce the amount of people being trafficked. That said, there's no official number of victims, but estimates place it in the hundreds of thousands. Certainly a very real thing that happens. Unfortunately, since we know so little about it happening and the instances, it is very fertile ground for conspiracy theorists. And why? Well, I mean, for one, it actually does come out of a real, genuine place of caring. Okay? People do want to do something about this. They want to help innocent victims. They want to help, especially children. unfortunately, these conspiracies tend to lead you down into some pretty dark places. Okay. And ended up actually hurting the people that you're trying to help by taking attention away from real cases. When it comes to COVID and you know, COVID denialism and anti-vax sentiments, you see a similar trend. It actually ends up hurting people in the end. I mean, and unfortunately, I've looked at sort of the pathology of conspiracy theories, and it usually ends up people thinking that they're smarter than everyone else. Oh, I know the truth. I'm unique. I'm special. The internet man, he told me so. He just confirmed what I already knew. And he told me to not trust you and any of your witchcraft science because that's the thing that's going to harm me. No. And another thing that's important about this is identity. I read something earlier today doing the research for the show, and there were people who were outwardly anti-vax that would sneak in to get their vaccination. And the reason that they would do this is that they didn't want their friends or family or neighbors to know that they were getting vaccinated because there was such a strong identity there of, oh no, you must resist the vaccine. It's tyranny. Please give me the vaccine, please. Please. Just put it right in real quick. Then I can get back to yelling about how vaccines are horrible. It kind of reminds me, of course, of people, you know, people who consider themselves pro-life, secretly sneaking away to get abortions or taking the morning after pill. So it's one of those things. It's all about identity. It's all about politics. And, you know, they think, no, see, here's the thing. That anti-vax sentiment has become a political identity, mainly on the right and for some in the supposed left. Oh no, if you don't take the vaccine, you're pure. You're literally calling themselves purebloods. You're better than others. If you take it, it means you're a weak man. It means you're giving into fear. Gee, I wonder where anybody would get that idea.
The point of mandatory vaccination is to identify the sincere Christians in the ranks, the free thinkers, the men with high testosterone levels, and anyone else who does not love Joe Biden and make them leave immediately. It's a takeover of the U.S. military.
Oh, right. That. I love how he throws in men with high testosterone. What does that have to do with anything? It has to do with nothing. Nothing at all. But it does make them believe, well, I've got high testosterone. I'm a man. I don't need no stinking vaccine. I'm a real man. Yeah. It's another example of more conspiracies, courtesy of course, Fox News. And that's why people are either not taking the vaccine or they're doing it in secret because it's a political club, it's a cult, it's an identity. It is not based on reality or science. Now, I want to go to this doctor. Here's a quick quote from her. She says this: I think it's just kind of a hopeless feeling. Speaking of the hostility that comes from some patients, families directed at healthcare workers. And I get that. And I think that plays into it as well. Unfortunately, not only is she personally burnt out from dealing with all the time with patients before we had a vaccine, but now even more so, despite the fact that we do have a vaccine, that this is easily preventable, the stuff that she's seeing now and today. In fact, BuzzFeed's David Mack writes about Idaho and how they currently have the lowest vaccination rate in the country. And the number of vaccine doses administered has not been climbing significantly, but infections have. As of Saturday, there were 686 patients hospitalized in the state, COVID, 180 of them in the ICUs, and that's actually hundreds more than what flooded hospitals during the previous surge in December 2020, before safe and effective vaccines were widely available. So they are just not taking it. And of course, that is a mixture of anti-vax sentiments and the Delta variant, which is much, much more infectious than it was before. Now, she also adds and talks about this. Last year at this time, I was very anxious about COVID. Being in the medical field, I understand. And I was just hoping for the day when we'd have a vaccine. It never occurred to me that there would be a day when we have a vaccine, and I'm actually more anxious now because we have something that can really prevent this, and people just aren't taking it. I share that frustration. I share it. That people have allowed their political identity to be placed above their own well-being and factual information. Unfortunately, that happens to be the nature of, right now, conspiracy theories, political identity, and polarization in this country. Okay. Go to Charlie Kirk. By the way, I didn't get to mention, quick programming note. I will not be here on Monday. So Monday is my birthday. So if you want to, send a super chat or something like that, or gift a few subs, and things like that, love for my birthday. I'm gonna be 38 on Monday, a little old. You could do that, and I appreciate it. Okay. So, and thank you for all the early birthday wishes. Go to Charlie Kirk. Conservative radio host Charlie Kirk just went full mask-off white nationalist over the Haitian migrant crisis. Take a look at this clip from one of his most recent shows.
Well, cut 80, DHS reports they've deported 1.7 thousand Haitians, but they've allowed 3,000 to come into America. Texas allowed this to happen. Texas could have intervened, and they could have usurped federal authority. They should have. Now, some people are saying I'm being too harsh on Texas. Well, Texas, whether they like it or not, are front and center, smack dab in the middle of the great question of our time, which is, who runs the country? What do you do when you start to have a apathetic tyrant, now apathetic when it comes to immigration law, but very engaged when it comes towards forcing vaccinations? What do you do? I know so many amazing patriots in the great state of Texas, and I love Texas, that have been waiting and are willing for this moment. Deputize a citizen force. Put them on the border. Give them handcuffs. Get it done. Sure, that's dramatic. You know what's dramatic? The invasion of the country. We're going to talk more about that. We're going to talk about how the other side has openly admitted that this is about bringing in voters that they want and they like, and honestly diminishing and decreasing white demographics in America. We're going to say that part out loud.
We're going to say that part out loud. The part that's full white replacement theory. Yeah, that's what that is. And by the way, if you're unfamiliar, white replacement theory, it sounds exactly what it is. It's a bonkers conspiracy theory that claims that Democrats are shipping people from overseas to become citizens in order to replace white people. That's nuts. Not only is it nuts, but it's also completely racist and makes a gigantic assumption about the way that people vote, by the way. I mean, okay, so think about it this way. And this is how you know Republicans are the party of white grievance. Other than, of course, what they say out in the open, like Charlie Kirk says, they could adjust their policies to be less racist. It should be easy to do. I mean, again, right now the Republican Party says, well, let's serve the rich. We're going to give the rich more money. Well, maybe not says it out loud, but they do so in their policies, and actions speak, of course, louder than words. And so they want to give all the money to the rich. Okay, well, I mean, you could make that policy. No, you know what? Actually, you can't. It's kind of a racist policy too. I'm trying to be incredibly fair and see how that works, but in reality, again, this is all about trying to hold on to the status quo, where white Christian men tend to hold on to most of the power and the money. And it's all about the monies. It's always about the monies. And so, I mean, what else can you say about this, right? It is meant to rile up scared white racist men who feel like they're losing the country. No, we're losing our country. We're losing our country. How? Because you can't say the N-word anymore. And really, that's what it's all about. That's what they're afraid of. That they can't say the N-word anymore. You go behind every conservative that, by the way, is free speech, right? That comes out, oh, I'm free speech, I'm free speech, I'm free, and I just think, I think we should just be able to do our free speech and go up against cancel culture and, just be free and conservative. Y'all just want to say the N-word. Come on. You know it. We all know it. And again, this is out of the white nationalist Nazi playbook. And here's Charlie Kirk openly giving a full-throated endorsement of it. They've gotten so bold as to put this out there in plain view. I mean, the Klan used to wear hoods. Now they're not even wearing the hoods anymore. They've taken the hoods off. Maybe because the hood actually has a mask in it and they're incredibly anti-mask. And so they're openly walking around and saying, oh, look at me, look how racist I can be. I mean, you're calling 3,000 Haitians who have suffered greatly as a result of natural disasters. In the middle of that clip that I didn't show, he showed a Fox News report that said, well, 1,700 Haitians had been deported by the Biden administration, but they let 3,000 in. Well, again, these Haitian people are refugees. They should be seeking asylum. And because they had suffered greatly from those natural disasters, like earthquakes, hurricanes, as well as U.S. interference that has destabilized their government. And now they have crime and they have gangs that are roaming around. They had the president, Jovenel Moise, that was literally assassinated. And so these people are coming over to the United States, and Charlie Kirk saying, invasion. It's an invasion. It's an invasion. No, it's not an invasion. Look, if everything were good in Haiti right now, of course they wouldn't be risking their lives to come here. Same situation, in Central America. If things were better, then of course they wouldn't want it. They wouldn't need to come here. These people are refugees, and we are bound by international law to let them in. There's nothing state law can do to prevent these people from coming in. It would set up a constitutional clash, is what would happen. And so, and by the way, I don't want Texas to stop it. I don't want them to try. Because guess what? I believe these people need help and compassion and empathy. Human things. Human things. They are human beings. And by the way, yesterday on yesterday's show, I went after the Biden administration for deporting them, for doing the fastest deportations in the history of the country, getting them all out as soon as possible. No, they didn't even get a chance to argue why they're refugees and why they should have asylum. Terrible, terrible. On both sides, but you can see that the rhetoric is even worse on the right-wing side. Literally using white nationalist Nazi talking points. But Charlie Kirk, again, Charlie Kirk and Charlie Kirk's donors, they don't want compassion and empathy. They think, black people. Well, obviously, they're going to come and go vote for Democrats. They're going to make our country brown. I don't want that. No, that means we lose power. And the reason you don't like it is because you're racist. That's Charlie Kirk. By the way, he also mentioned, I got to mention, that he says he wants an armed white militia. He wants a literal vigilante gang to go around with guns, harassing, he didn't say guns, but come on, it's Texas. You don't think there's going to be guns? And handcuffs? Yeah, of course. No, he wants those people to go around and harass black and brown people. Immigrants or not, they're going to see somebody who's black or brown and think, I don't care. Oh, that could be an immigrant. I'm going to come after him. That's who they are. If there's any amount if there's ever any doubt left in your mind who Charlie Kirk really is, then I'm sorry, I can't help you. He went mask off, hood off, all of that. And if you can't tell by now who he really is, then you're already too far gone. All right. Moving on. One more story here. We're going to get to the sexy seahorses. An insane story. Give them handcuffs implies similar authority to police who have the right to use guns in public. That is how Charlie Kirk was implying to give them. From the people who brought you the evils of the left's cancel culture is, hey, isn't cancel culture great? But only if we do it. And besides, it's to protect the children. Now, according to the Daily Beast, a conservative group in Texas is in the middle of a battle to ban certain school books. So now, in Tennessee's Williamson County School District, which has, by the way, passed a new state law banning the teaching of certain race-related topics, probably, of course, a response to critical race theory, which is not even taught in the classroom. So understand that they have freaked out about critical race theory, which is a college-level course, and say, oh, we got to get CRT out of the classroom. I know, let's ban it. Ban it. And, of course, they end up banning or being able to ban race-related subjects, like the civil rights era. So now, that new state law, of course, has allowed them to sue to eliminate these materials, but they're going a little bit further. Apparently, a private school parent has a brand new group that is going to war on books involving race, dragons, sad owls, hurricanes, and sexy seahorses. The group is, and I just want to give you the irony about this. They are called Moms for Liberty. We believe in liberty, except, for reading. Like books that you want to read. We don't believe in that kind of liberty. Right? Now, registering its website in late 2020, the group Moms for Liberty is one of a series of conservative education groups spring up in the wake of 2020's racial justice protests. The group is currently involved in battles against in-school mask mandates, because of course, as well as a particularly heated fight over school books in Tennessee's Williamson County. Now, the best part about this group is that the leader doesn't even have any kids in the school district. So she's not even involved. There's not even a parental aspect to this. This is, I don't want your kids to learn about these things. I don't have kids there. I don't want your children to learn about this because it offends me. Why would you care at all what they're reading? It doesn't involve you or your children. Again, if you don't even like the curriculum, you have the right to go and homeschool your kids. No, it's not. That's not enough. We have to control your life too. We have to censor things that your children might be reading. So now, they sent a letter in June complaining that the district's curriculum had violated state law against the teaching of some race-related subjects in public schools. They specifically took issue with items about Martin Luther King Jr., Ruby Bridges, protests during the civil rights movement, and school segregation. So these are historical figures. There's historical context. These are things that happened in history. And she says, well, no, I don't want you learning about that. I don't want you learning about that because I think the framing is bad. You cannot read or learn something about this. How dare you? Because you might actually learn something. All right. Accompanying the letter is an 11-page spreadsheet with complaints about other books on the district's curriculum, ranging from popular books on civil rights heroes to books about poisonous animals. The text speaks of horned lizards squirting blood out of their eyes, which they actually do. Johnny Appleseed, they said, because the story is sad and dark. Greek and Roman mythology, because look, now let's be honest. In Greek and Roman mythology, they fuck. A lot of fucking going on. The illustration of the goddess Venus naked coming out of the ocean. Normally, of course, she covers herself up in those drawings. Story of Tantalus and how he cooks, serves, and eats his son. A book about hurricanes, they say, is no good. They say, well, you know, hurricanes, first graders are too young to learn about hurricanes. Okay, but first graders go through hurricanes. They also say that a book about owls is too sad. Quote, it's a sad book, but turns out okay. Not a book I would want to read for fun, an adult wrote in the owl book in the spreadsheet. But nobody cares. You're not the class. You're not the student. Maybe they do want to read about the owl. Maybe they get something from it that you don't. You're an adult. They're a child. I mean, baby brain. Brainworms. All right, there's more. Reach for comment, the Williamson County MFL chapter told the Daily Beast that the list represented a collection of complaints about books in the district. There are 31 books that our parents have expressed concern about. The group's leader wrote in an email, some books should be removed entirely. Some books are objectionable only because of how they are presented via the accompanying teacher's manual. And yes, some books would better be suited to a higher grade level due to age-inappropriate content. In addition to the broadsides against books about kings and bridges, the list takes a dim view of multiple books about Native Americans or indigenous people. One of them, they say The Rough-Faced Girl, is deemed inappropriate because it includes an illustration of the protagonist bathing with her hair covering her chest. Oh no! Their hair covering her chest! No!
Oh no!
Perversion! Absolute perversion! How dare they?
I like my meat tight.
No, you don't! Because that's what's going to happen. No, come on. You're kidding. You're kidding. Now, the book First Nations in North America, Plains Indians, also is apparently a no-no because, and get this, it, quote, paints white people in a negative light. You realize the history of this. White people came over to North America. They spread disease, murdered countless indigenous people, and not just North America, South America as well. In fact, you had Christopher Columbus's men literally ripping children from mothers' wombs and dashing them on rocks. That is according to accounts from one of Christopher Columbus's men, who had then experienced so much horrifying imagery when he was there. He saw some shit, and later on went on to completely repent on all of that and say, oh my God, the things that I dealt with, I'm going to be scarred for the rest of my life seeing this stuff. Now just imagine how they felt. But let's worry about the image of white people. And by the way, I'm not saying, and let me be clear, I'm not saying that you as a white person should feel personally responsible and ashamed of what had happened. You did not take part of that. You didn't do it. But it is part of our history, as bad as it is. And so understand that you have to learn about this history so that those same mistakes in the past are not repeated. Also, it matters because history shapes today. Okay? So now there's more. They also complain that multiple books contain Spanish or French Creole words, and they receive warnings for potentially confusing the children. They're confused at these foreign words. In America, we speak American. An article about crackdowns on civil rights demonstrators, meanwhile, is also deemed inappropriate for the negative view of firemen and police. Well, you know, during the civil rights era, it was firemen and police that constantly would crack down and literally crack skulls. They would shoot fire hoses at people, release dogs on civil rights protesters. That's literally our history, what happened. And so, yes, it is important to teach that. And sure, you can do it, of course, when it's age appropriate. I wouldn't teach a kindergartner about that. But I also wouldn't teach them Columbus sailed the ocean blue and discovered America, and he was great. No, to say, well, Columbus, very controversial figure. You'll learn the details later. Trust me, not good. Now, a fictional book about the Civil War, also given to fifth graders, is deemed inappropriate in part due to predictions of, get this, out-of-marriage families between white men and black women. You mean slaves, right? That's what happened. That's slaves. Slavery. You can't even say it, apparently. And now, these same people want to ban the book. Just erasing history. What happened to erasing history? The conservatives didn't want to erase history. What are you talking about? Now, they also say that it's bad because it has descriptions of white people as bad or evil. So, now, let me just get one thing straight, okay? People are people. White people aren't a certain way, just like black people or brown people aren't a certain way. I mean, you can't just stereotype somebody based on the color of their skin. Ridiculous. Nobody agrees with that. No, people are people. Individuals matter. They make their choices. Not any one group is bad or evil. It always comes down to the choices of people in that group and what they do. So, and it doesn't take a genius to figure that one out. That people are people and will make their own decisions. And some people will do bad things. Some people will do good things. And it's not representative of your race. Now, there's more. And also, at one juncture, the group implores the school district to include more charitable descriptions of the Catholic Church when teaching a book about Galileo Galilei. Remember, Galileo was persecuted by the church by saying that the earth revolves around the sun instead of what they believed at the time, that, everything revolves around the earth, which was factually incorrect. But here's what they said about this. Bro, where's the hero of the church? Contrast with their mistakes. There are so many opportunities to teach children the truth of our history as a nation. First of all, that didn't even happen in America. That happened over in Europe. The church has a huge and lasting influence on American culture. Both good and bad should be represented. The Christian church was responsible for the genesis of hospitals, orphanages, social work, charity, to name a few. Yeah, okay, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about the oppression of the repression and persecution of scientists and science and knowledge. I mean, they did oppress people. The whole reason there was the Dark Ages, literally the result of the domination of the Catholic Church. There was the Inquisition, literal Inquisition. Okay, so yeah, it took brave individuals to challenge that orthodoxy, and many lost their lives as a result of that. Burned at the stake for heresy. Now, I'll admit that the church is better than it used to be. Yeah, they're not burning people alive, at least. Hey, that's good. But that said, they have their problems. Like, Catholic child sex scandals, that whole thing. I'm not going to get into that, though. I'm just saying that it's there. So, now finally, they decided to take issue with a picture book. A picture book about seahorses. In part, that it depicted mating seahorses with positions, pictures of positions, and discussion of the male carrying eggs. In fact, I'm going to show you a video here. This is somebody who is reading that book for the internet. And I want you to take a look at this and see what kind of smut they're teaching our children.
Every day at sunrise, Seahorse swims slowly off to meet his mate. They twist their tails together and twirl gently around, changing color until they match. Seahorses are faithful to one mate and often pair up for life. Today, Seahorse's mate is full of ripe eggs. The two of them dance until sunset, and then she puts her eggs into his pouch. Barber seahorses mate every few weeks during the breeding season. Only the male seahorse has a pouch. Only the female seahorse can grow eggs.
Oh my god. I hope you were able to avert your eyes to this horrible pornographic material about seahorses. Seahorses? More like sea sluts, let me tell you. Gross. Oh my god. No, okay. Now, the MFL, to be fair, and I am making fun of them, but to be fair, they do recommend that the book be reserved for older children. How old? 8th graders. So, wait, 8th graders? For that? That seems like more like a 3rd grade book. I mean, so, okay, these people are super ridiculous, and they need to remove the stick from their ass. Now, I get the idea of protecting children from certain ideas or concepts until they're mature enough to handle them mentally, okay? I get that. But we also have to remember that kids are smarter than we give them credit for. No, really, they are. 8th graders, for example, look, they've probably been on the internet. They're around 13 to 14 years old. Chances are they have likely seen worse than the Seahorse book. Which, again, if you look at the Seahorse book, that's not objectionable at all. I mean, look, just judging from my own personal experience, I knew things at 13 that would blow this group's mind. And I would like to think that I actually turned out pretty okay. Now, again, the issue here is kids aren't stupid. You can't just sit there and bubble wrap and baby them all the way into their teens and into adulthood. That's going to cause a lot of problems for them personally and socially and in their development. I'm sorry, but you can't always protect them from objectionable material. I'm not saying you expose them intentionally, by the way. No, you don't do anything like that. Of course not. But here's the thing. You have to allow them to grow. And you also have to not underestimate them. Be open and honest. If they have questions, you should answer them as a parent. And I realize that, understand that might not be easy to do, and I get it, but you try to do the best to explain the truth of how things work, and you do so in a way, of course, that is age appropriate. And the reason you do that is so that you don't shock them later in life. Because, of course, that lack of knowledge could also harm them. One more thing to note, by the way, is that the students themselves. So now, as these book bans have been going on, and they've been going on for a long time, there's always been conservative groups that have been pushing back, trying to ban books they find are objectionable. For example, there was Anal Sex Lady, Anal Sex Karen, that was like, I've never had it before. This book is terrible. Well, you should get it removed. Okay, all right, calm down. I get it. I understand. But you have to make sure that, kids have some knowledge of how things work. Maybe not necessarily that we're just talking about, okay? But like, to make sure that, again, they're exposed to things that are age appropriate, and to make sure you don't get them into a situation where their lack of knowledge could end up harming them in the long run. So again, this is a very difficult subject to talk about, and there is, of course, a lot of nuance involved. And I'm not, of course, trying to tell people how to parent, just trying to show how ridiculous some of this stuff actually is and how overboard these people are taking it. Okay? But as I mentioned before, there's a lot of students themselves that have been fighting back against these book bans. And they're, in fact, frequently complaining that they are not allowed to read certain things that they think that they'd be able to handle, that they should be allowed to read. And in fact, as a result, in New York, they stood up for themselves and saying, no, we can handle this. I think we're old enough to understand these concepts and to absorb them and to treat them responsibly. And I think that's good. And, again, ultimately what we want is for kids to grow up and to have critical thinking and knowledge about the world. We want them to learn. We want them to think for themselves and to become their own people. And you can't really do that when you try to overparent and block them from learning things, even, especially if those things are innocuous or presented in a way you might disagree with the framing, but it is important that they get all different perspectives. And this group is apparently absolutely against allowing children to have different perspectives. And I think the reason is because, well, they want to have control and to make sure that their kids have only one perspective, and that's theirs. So, again, this is a very nuanced topic, but I think I got it. I think I nailed it. All right. So students are fighting back and winning. Yes, I can see your comments. You're not in Facebook jail. You're good. I can see you. You know who I'm talking to. All right. So yeah, very nuanced, very difficult to talk about, but I think it is important that we try not to ban books for little reasons. So, all right. Okay. Yeah, that's really it. That's all I got for you today. Let me read some super chats here. Let's get to that real quick before we sign out for today. I do want to thank you. I don't remember who said it earlier, but that I've been kind of like on it really well for the past few weeks. Yeah, and that's because that's because I've actually gotten treatment for ADHD, so I feel a lot better. I'm a lot more focused. So it's real nice. It's real nice to be focused, and real good to feel normal. Let's see. Vandi Mana says, first time catching you live, love the content. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Cola Addict, thank you very much for your donation as well. Rialan N says, happy pre-birthday. Thank you very much. I appreciate that as well. Thank you for the donation. Madi Darno, thank you. I appreciate that as well. I don't know if I'll eat cake. Maybe an ice cream cake. I don't know. Sweet Dingo 45 says the English language is based on multiple languages. This is true. It's almost as if what was that quote where it's like the people who created the English language, it's like they're at a great feast of languages and we're basically picking up all the scraps. I don't remember that verbatim, but generally correct. Let's see. S Bloom 85, thank you for gifting. How many tier 1? Two tier 1 subs. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Right said Rob, thank you for subbing for 1 month tier 1. Appreciate that. Yeah, okay, there's that. Koru, thank you for the very kind donation as well. I appreciate that. That was me. Ravaging Wolverine figures the result of the diagnosis. I can relate. Thank you. Serious Monolith, thank you. I appreciate that as well. My channel keeps getting better and better. Well, that's the whole point. But I'm trying. I'm just trying to make the best show that I can. Let's see. Jeb James, thank you for resubbing as a German election on Sunday. Keep an eye out. By the way, just before I go real quick, I did kind of want to address the AOC Iron Dome vote. I'm incredibly disappointed. Let's say that. So I'm incredibly disappointed that it was a present vote. So she did not vote no, she didn't vote yes. Everybody's angry. And so I'm also, as I said, I'm incredibly disappointed because there's no reason that we need to be funding Israel's Iron Dome. They're the wealthiest country in that region. They can afford their own. And by the way, this is on top of the additional monies we have already sent for the Iron Dome. Oh, but it had some repairs. Really? How did that get damaged? I'm curious. I'm curious to know. I'm very curious to know. Bowman also voted yes. That's unfortunate, but yeah, I believe you had Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, that did vote no. And so now a lot of people, not to go on too long, but a lot of people noted that she was apparently very emotional following that vote. And previously, there was Nancy Pelosi had taken her aside and spoken to her. And afterwards, she changed her vote. So that makes me think one thing. What did Nancy Pelosi promise or threaten her with? So understand that these politicians, they play super hardball, right? Nancy Pelosi, especially against progressives. So it's not outside the realm of reason that Nancy Pelosi said, here's the deal. You vote, you don't have to vote yes on this, but you can't vote no. You need to vote present. So, and again, a present vote, in my opinion, is a cowardice vote. So, I'm sorry, it is a cowardly vote because you're not taking either side, but you're still essentially allowing this to go forward, this to go through, and not making a statement against it, which AOC has rightly before criticized politicians for taking present votes. And so, I mean, yes, it is a little bit of hypocrisy, and it is right to point that out. Absolutely. So now it gets me to wondering, though, what was threatened? Because I'm pretty sure it wasn't a promise. Had to have been a threat. We know Nancy Pelosi doesn't really care about progressive priorities. So you look at the $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill. There's a lot of stuff in there that progressives want. A lot of good stuff. Expansion of Medicare, include vision, dental, and hearing. None of that stuff Nancy Pelosi really actually cares about giving. So my guess is that she comes in and she says, well, look, I could just agree with Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema, and strip out this portion of the $3.5 trillion bill if you go against, this Iron Dome. I mean, I think that part, putting AOC in between a rock and a hard place, is more than enough reason for her to get emotional over. Definitely. Because I could see that she has literally no choice, because damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? Voting rights, that's another possible example. And so I definitely think there was coercion involved in that vote. I don't know if it's a committee seat. If it is, that's a good point as well. If it is a committee seat that's being promised, then she might have to look at the long-term picture, knowing that very likely this Iron Dome money was going to pass anyway, again, which is disgusting and an indictment of our political system overall. But a committee chair, I mean, either threatening to take away her committee chair, which again would reduce or diminish her power and progressives' power, or promising a better committee chair, which could possibly increase progressive power. I mean, again, it's probably a way of having someone a ball. And so that's, and understand, this is the unfortunate truth of politics. Compromise votes, backroom deals, and I hate it, by the way. This is the one thing that sucks shit about our system, is that progressives, even if they mean well, they're put into these positions. I would really like to hear, and this is what I would like to see more than this milquetoast, cowardly present vote. Maybe she should have said yes, and then went, this is why. Maybe an explanation like, hey, look, I had to vote yes. I was pressured to vote yes. I don't like it, but here's why. Here's why I did that. And by the way, I think we should be asking Jamal Bowman the same question. Why did you vote for it? Why did you support this? Give us a reason so at least we understand why. I don't like not knowing, because even if you can disagree, if we're given a concise reason like, well, this is what we got in return. This might help our community. This might help our, my constituency in this way. This is what we were promised. Then I get it. Then even if I disagree and think, well, it's still a terrible vote, at least we know. And so that's what frustrates me, I think, the most about this, is that we don't know, and that she's not going out there and explaining why there's a present vote. And so, again, and by the way, we don't know, again, what was promised or what kind of pressure was put on her, but we definitely know there was. AOC should have pulled her card. Don't let the jackals push you around. Not sure what card she had to pull, but if she did have something and decided not to use that, well, then that absolutely sucks. Now, let me just say one more thing too, and I tweeted this out last night. DMFI, and I think this is true for a lot of Democrats, not just AOC. Democrats are absolutely afraid of doing anything that could be perceived as anti-Semitic, obviously. Now, unfortunately, that is a term that by some gets weaponized by some in order to allow us to continue sending more money to a country that doesn't necessarily need our money. Okay, and so into supporting positions that are, let's just say, that support an apartheid state, because that's what Israel is right now. It's an apartheid state that is oppressing the Palestinians. Make no bones about it. And again, you will be called anti-Semitic by mainstream media and by politicians like Ted Deutsch, for calling that out. They're afraid of that, deathly afraid of that, and they're afraid of DMFI doing what they did to them, doing what they did to Nina Turner happening to them. They don't want that to happen. Millions of dollars in DMFI ads, dishonest ads, dropped several days before the election, and Nina Turner lost in Ohio. This vote makes the squad look weak, because the squad is weak. And I'm not saying that as an indictment of the squad. What I'm saying is that when it comes to the caucus and how many people they have, they are weak. Compared to the compared to corporate Democrats, they are weak because they are a minority. And so, yes, there is weakness in that position, and they don't understand, they understand they don't have a lot of leverage. That said, I believe that they should take whatever leverage they have and try to use that. But I do think one of the reasons that they don't, it's not because, and I'm not going to go conspiratorial, it's not because they're bought, they're complicit, or whatever. I think it's because they don't know how to play the game effectively. Now, AOC's got a great media game. So she does a great job on trying to, rally public opinion. But when it comes to the insider deal making and playing that insider politics game and using the power of leverage, I don't think she knows exactly what she's doing. And that's to her and our disadvantage, because people do believe in her a lot. And I believe that she is an ally. And I will continue to support the things that she does right and criticize her for the things that she does wrong. And I think she is still a net gain, a net positive. But I don't think she understands quite yet. And this is something that can be learned. This is something that she can learn. To leverage and to wield those levels of power inside. And we tend to forget that she's a first-term freshman congresswoman. No, I think she's in her second term. Sorry. but she's still very, very new to the issues inside and to dealing with the insider game. And so there is that lack of knowledge that allows her to be overpowered, so to speak, by people like Nancy. So AOC could have stood by her principles, but she bucked them. I mean, yes, but it doesn't necessarily mean, again, we don't know the details behind this. And that's why it would be really nice to know what kind of pressure. Her principles tend to be that of trying to do what's best for her constituency, correct? And so if it came between allowing more money for Israel, and by the way, if you're gonna expect any Democratic politician to be good on foreign policy, no, not even Bernie Sanders is good on foreign policy. Sorry, a lot of them do really suck. And so let's just get that out of the way. I don't think we're ever really going to be happy as people who are anti-imperialist and anti-foreign intervention and, wanting to be tougher on Israel for their treatment of Palestinians. We're never going to be happy about this. And so that's the other thing to remember as well. I'd like to see her succeed, but her actions look like she's joining the establishment. I think it more looks like she can't figure out how to exactly fight that monolith. And so I think, and again, this is a very nuanced and very difficult discussion as well. And I just think that from the outside, it's much easier to castigate people completely without understanding the intricacies of what happens, as well as, the relative inexperience of these politicians that are in office. And of course, the gigantic strength, the enormous strength that the establishment has inside those corridors of power. After all, they made the rules. So, again, this is one of those situations where you do have to be nuanced about this. Problem is the system, not AOC. As long as public service is factional, never no representative could be purely moralistic. True. That's a good point. That's a good point. I still think AOC is again, I think she's an ally, and I think she is a net positive. She's a net good, even if we are, of course, disappointed with some of the votes. And again, this isn't the first vote that she's done poorly on, in my opinion. And, it probably won't be the last one that we were disappointed in as well. Again, you could go back and you can look at some of Bernie Sanders' votes as well. And so, but generally, I think a lot of people tend to forgive him. So maybe we should also not forgive, but not be quite as willing to write her off completely for some of the things that we disagree with, considering, of course, how she is still one of the best people that we have on our side, and that I think she is on our side. My good friend Joe Biden, something. I think that's more semantic, Scott, honestly. And I understand why those saying things like that, but again, it goes back to the veneer of comedy, not comedy as in haha, but that they were all kind of forced to do. You know what I'm saying? I think what Bernie Sanders was doing in saying that was more of like, hey, Joe Biden, I'm your friend, so please listen to me. And look, he's budget committee chairman, and he certainly has more influence, not as much as I would hope or like, but he certainly has more influence over the process than he would have had in any other administration. Nuance. And I'm glad you all understand that. The last thing I want to do is be unfair or be too fair. You know what I'm saying? And end up screaming at somebody just because it's good for clicks and views. I'm not going to do that. I would rather be nuanced, and I would rather be, fair, and I'd rather be honest, and give people a real perception of what's actually going on, and present these viewpoints of, based on what we don't actually know, what happens inside these corridors of power, because we've never been in those corridors of power, and versus the outside, because it is really easy to get angry at people, and for good reason, by the way, too. And I understand people's anger, and I'm angry myself. Again, I'm incredibly disappointed at some of these votes, but at the same time, you also have to do some critical thinking. And understand the position that we put them in, as constituents, as voters, things like that, and understand that what they have to work with. What do they have to work with? What environment are they in? And how can they most effectively wield power? Being too fair is leaving many of the convo, which is bad, but many need it as they have suffered the most. And I totally understand that as well. And so, you really have to, get into that as well, and try to not just, be as fair as possible, but also critical when it does matter. Yeah, all politicians really do have to walk very fine lines, and that's true as well. So, again, nuanced conversation, and I appreciate you, chiming in and having this conversation as well with me, about this, and being as understanding as you are, and seeing my perspective, and I see your perspective as well. One more here. I did get a super chat. Koru, thank you. Very kind, $10. I do appreciate that as well. I am going to go. So I got some editing to do. Please like and share the stream. Thank you for the birthday wishes. I look forward to having a little bit more of a relaxing weekend this weekend. And thank you all. We'll see you on Tuesday. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. See you on Tuesday. You have a fantastic weekend.
Dumps. Big, massive dumps.
Please clap.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.
Stop with the questions.